All right, that is Reg Bloor playing what is called the double-bodied harmonics guitar. Reg, we thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you sharing your music and talking to us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I have just been blown away by your music for the last year and a half or so. Robert Fripp shares your links quite often on his Facebook as he says you have a lot to teach him. So do you have a response to that when you see those?
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, so your music is just really wild, and I love your use of violence and cartoonish, art. I love what you're doing. It's I'll just read through a little bit of your bio. You're a New York City-based experimental guitarist. You've got 4 solo records, all of which are available on Bandcamp. This most recent one from September 24 is all pieces on the double-bodied harmonic guitar, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And then prior to that, an amazing album called Viewer Discretion is Not Advised. And then two more albums from 2018 and 2015, Sensory Irritation Chamber and Theme from an Imaginary Slasher. Uh, I love your descriptions too, that you mix up punk, the skronk of no wave. I think on your Bandcamp you say screechscape. So it's clear, like, that what you're doing is really pushing the edge. Can you talk about how you feel about all of this in your presentation and setting it up?
Um, I'm just trying to keep myself interested, I have a pretty, traditional music education background. I went to Berklee and stuff. And it made me feel like music theory should be taught as a history and not as a set of rules, because it's really a history of broken rules. And so it's sort of like you come out the other end knowing that you can play anything, but you know why. And so I felt like music theory was what I shouldn't play because that's what's already been done a million times. The reason they're telling you to play that is because that's what people are used to hearing because they've already heard it. And so I wanted that to me, that was a reason not to do it. So, because I wanted to do something new. So
Well,
that's what I did.
it's awesome. Tell us about this double-bodied harmonic guitar. I know that some of this stems from your late husband, Glenn Branca's work. So I'd love to just hear more about this. Actually, when I saw the cartoon illustration of the double-bodied guitar, I thought it was you were just being clever and it was kind of a joke. And then I saw you actually playing this instrument, which was so wild to me. So tell us about this instrument.
He actually built that,
Mm.
Glenn did. Well, he had been building harmonics guitars since the early 80s. But he was building them out of two by fours um, with a bridge in the middle, like the third bridge guitars. And he wanted one he could play standing up. So he built the double-bodied one. But I'm using the pickups on this side, not the ones down here.
And how do you approach this instrument? It looked like it was all steel strings, no
Yeah.
wrapped strings. Like, tell us, how do you tune it, if you tune it at all, and how do you string it? What gauges are you using? Like, give us the nerdy nitty gritty.
Um, I think it's got 11s on it. I think they're all 11s right now. When he was writing pieces for them, he had very specific tunings because they were tuned to the harmonic series. Um, but uh, when I play it, I just kind of find a tuning that I'm finding sounds good. But the secret is to know where the harmonics are and then know where the finer harmonics are. And, the idea is to bring out the higher order harmonics above the ones used in Western music. And to find where those are, you kind of have to do some math.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of exploration with that myself as a guitarist. And one thing I love about your music is so often I have these little moments of, oh, that's neat, that little phase tension or that strange sound, but it's a fleeting thing. It's 5 seconds, 10 seconds. You go all in. Like how do you like when you're approaching the instrument? Tell us more about this.
Like I said, I'm trying to keep myself interested. The more dissonance I play, the more consonance sounds like children's music to me. And so I want maybe my ear has been twisted a little bit much, but
Yeah, tell us about the guitar itself, that double-bodied harmonics guitar. You said it can be tuned, but there's no headstock. How do you how do you tune the instrument? It's strings going through two bridges, right?
it's got dulcimer pegs on one side.
Oh, okay. On the upper or lower?
The upper side, yeah.
All right. And
Is it on the upper side? That might be on the, I don't remember actually. It does have dulcimer pegs on it though.
and are all of the pieces on this album on this one guitar, or is it many types of harmonics guitars?
That particular album, it's just the one, but I'm working on volume two, which is going to be for 2x4 harmonics guitars. I've done some other pieces where I turn a mandolin into a harmonics guitar, and then I have one where I turn a diddley bow that's a shorter, like 2x4 guitar into one.
I
But
noticed.
they're on the records,
Yeah,
not on that one.
I think it was on your first solo record, where you're playing a mandolin.
No, that was my third one where I
Your
played the
third one.
mandolin.
Okay, yeah,
Uh, Devil Without a God.
that's
And
right.
then my first record, there's a track called 122 Zeros and then a one where I play the diddley bow.
And another interesting thing about your music is when I first listened to it, it was hard to find maybe structure. And I was thinking about it as like, are you familiar with the Dillinger Escape Plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so their music is rather chaotic. And when I first encountered that, I was bewildered. How does anyone remember how to play this? And then the more that I watched of you performing live and your Twitch stream recordings, uh, it's very consistent what you're doing. These are structured pieces of music, and it takes a couple of listens. But I'm curious, like, how do you approach the composition of this? I know you said you're trying to stay entertained, for yourself, but these are complex pieces with some sophisticated arrangement. Can you share, walk us through your process?
I usually start with the chord first. I like to make up weird chords and then I write them down so I can remember. And then I find some rhythm. And then when I get some that go together, the actual structures aren't that complicated,
Mm.
to be honest. They're kind of little punk songs. But now that when I started playing solo, they got a little more complicated because there wasn't somebody else to make it more interesting. But you listen to them, they're not that complicated, honestly.
Yeah, they do follow, a somewhat typical, like there's a verse, there's a chorus in some of the songs, so for sure. The tone on the when I watched your live recordings versus the album recordings is remarkably consistent. The albums are much louder than your YouTube, but it looks like you're only using one or two pedals and a small Fender amp. Is that the case?
Yeah, I just overdrive everything. When I do, when I made the videos, I overdrove the DAW, overdrove OBS. I just everything was in the red. I do use a harmonizer just for a texture, not really for harmony, but that's the only pedal I use. I'm not really into pedals.
Yeah, I cracked up because somebody said I think I heard your G string was a little bit sharp, and you said something like, "Yeah, I need to be careful so I don't play a perfect fifth." How do
That was
you?
Matt Malero, by the way.
Oh, was it
Uh,
okay?
yeah.
Like, are you? are you specifically trying to avoid anything, or is this just you're using enough distortion, um, and like the harmonizer, you're using enough to kind of conceal whether you're doing anything ordinary?
Um, well, the chords I'm playing are not ordinary.
Well, it looks. I mean, it's hard to tell. Are you playing in standard tuning?
Yeah, yeah, they're standard tuning.
Okay, because yeah, I noticed a lot of your fingerings are very unusual, but given everything that's going on, like I wasn't about to sit down with my own guitar and, and try to figure out, oh, she's doing this. A lot of Glenn Branca's music is, I mean, there's a lot of experimentation going on, but there's plenty that's consonant and just clear guitars, like the guitar symphonies. And I was watching your right hand, and you've got excellent right hand technique, even when you're, doing this. How come your guitars aren't scratched to pieces?
Well, you part of that technique is keeping the motion tight, you know. So I'm not hitting the guitar. I'm just staying on the strings.
Yeah, is that something you picked up? I mean, a lot of guitarists, most guitarists I've seen that play in your really reckless kind of style,
Well,
they
I went to Berklee in the early 90s.
right,
They kind of hammered that into us.
just play on the strings.
Yeah.
Interesting. What do you feel you took away from your experience at Berklee?
Um, that's a good question. I learned how to read a contract. That was extremely useful. Um, and like I said, I got a different perspective on music theory, like I described earlier. You know.
Did you make friends there, or was it a lot of challenges with that?
I made a few friends, yeah. I mean, there weren't many girls there when I was there, so we kind of stuck together.
Interesting. Um, you mentioned in an interview with Joel Galston, you started on piano as a 5-year-old, and one of the highlights for me in your story was you saw the Residents on Night Flight, but you didn't really talk about what impact that had on you. We featured a lot of Residents related content on the channel, so tell us about the Residents.
Um, it's weird. I lived at the time I lived in the suburbs, and it was not easy to find weird records. So I heard them. I was so curious about them, but I couldn't find their records anywhere. It wasn't until I moved to Boston to go to college that I could find their records. But yeah, I was always looking for like the weird music was always kind of elusive, you know, at the time. It was like I'd get a taste of it and then I couldn't find it. And then it's made it, I guess, more intriguing to me when I did find it.
I don't know what year you went to Berklee. I'm friends with Steve Vai, who went there, and Michael Manring, I think, went at the same time. Steve told me he would go sit in the Berklee library and just listen to Ligeti and a lot of experimental music. Did you share in any of that? Was Berklee a place that opened your mind at all?
Um, it opened my mind mostly to jazz, to be honest. But while I was in Boston, I obviously heard Glenn and actually when I was in high school, I had an electronic music class and we learned a little bit about like Cage and Schoenberg and like 20th century composers. So I did have a little bit of that. Um, but yeah, it was more jazz at Berklee.
Do you go to any particular music for inspiration? I interviewed a guy named Devin Townsend who does a lot of heavy metal music. All day long, he listened to ambient music when we were together. I mean, like all day, probably 8 hours of ambient music. He called it the guy sleeping on the keyboard, and I asked him about that, and he said, it's the only way I can do what I do. I need the calm, in my regular life. And then I can perform that way. What about you? I don't know. Just tell us where you're coming from.
It's weird. I've actually been thinking about how to articulate this thing. I've been thinking like there's certain bands, there's certain movies, there's certain art that just makes me want to pick up my guitar or go to Blick and buy a bunch of paint or go out and shoot a bunch of video. Not just something that's good or that I like, but there's certain things, and The Residents are one of them. Or like John Waters movies or uh, like trauma movies or like Grant Morrison comics. They make me want to create something, you know. It's not just I like them. It's like I want it now. I want to go paint something. I want to go write something, you know. And they're just certain. So yeah, when I want to be get in the head to create something, yeah, I put on something like that, you know. I put on um Space Ghost Coast to Coast was one of those shows, you know, like Absolutely Fabulous was one of those. I don't know what it is about them, but they make me want to go create something.
Man, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, really, that's one of my favorite shows ever. It just was so brilliant. So many incredible, awkward moments, and they brought on such interesting guests. You just really never knew what you were going to encounter. Tell me about your, like, these, when you go to pick up the guitar, do you always plug in and it's, this distorted, loud, set of frequencies, or is it something else?
Most of the time when I'm practicing at home, I'm just practicing unplugged. I'm just on my electric, but not plugged in.
Uh-huh.
Or when I'm writing or something. Then I
Always
don't
your Les
plug
Paul?
in. Yeah.
And what
And
about these
I don't.
other instruments you have?
Oh, when I'm writing for those, when I'm writing for the harmonics guitar, that has to be plugged in because you can't get the harmonics unplugged.
Yeah, how does
Yeah.
a harmonics guitar work? Like, how is it built, and what is the sound that you're after with it?
Um, the sound is the higher order harmonics, and the two by four harmonics guitars have a third bridge, so it dampens the fundamental completely. The double-bodied harmonics guitar, I use a slide, and that dampens the fundamental somewhat, not as much. But the pickups are on this side, on the
Hmm.
headstock side, on the opposite side from where I'm picking it.
And are these just natural harmonics, or are they the result of multiple notes playing at the same time that you're after?
They're natural harmonics.
Okay. Um, I mentioned Michael Manring earlier. He said he always has to have a fresh set of strings on his bass, and he can get like 13 harmonics, starting from the maybe the fifth fret ish. He plays fretless bass, but he gets far more harmonics on a fresh set of strings. Uh, is this something that you notice? Like, does the quality of the strings matter? The age of the strings, or anything?
Um, well, fresh strings are always better, but I'm not getting the harmonics the same way you would on a regular guitar. They're I'm actually playing the notes between the notes, you know, the um I don't know how much you know about the harmonic series, but um you know, the notes you hear when you strike a note, the wavelengths, how do I explain this? Like the fundamental, this is the wave, and
Hmm.
then the next note is the octave that divides the wave in half, and the third note divides the wave in thirds. The next note divides the fourth, blah 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 blah
Right.
blah. You take the first 30 or so of those, and you take out the octave redundancies. That's the 12 notes of Western music. Um, Glenn wrote symphonies for the first 127 intervals of the harmonic series.
Hmm.
So it's not just getting an overtone. They're actually tuned to play those notes.
And is that more to do with like the tuning, or are you like using special pickups? Because a lot of times, the pickup placement or the level of distortion, you can get a harmonic with one pickup, but not with another. Like, how are you making sure you capture these things?
Well, you have to know where they are on the string.
Right,
There's no frets on the thing, so
right,
um, I actually divide the neck into those fractions.
right.
And so to find them there, you have to find them in between the other notes.
Interesting. And the slide itself is enough to, because I guess I've never really tried harmonics with a slide. I imagine it's very effective.
Well, it dampens the fundamental.
Oh, okay, that's what you're after.
Yeah. Not as much as the third bridge does, but yeah. I'm interested in the notes on this side.
Okay. So you're trying to subtract what we would more typically hear and use the
Yeah.
rest of the string resonance. Okay, interesting. The second piece of music I wanted to share is 10 minutes into a live show that you did at the Downtown Music Gallery in May 2023. And you're doing a lot of three finger tapping on each hand. What is the name of this piece?
Unstrumental.
Unstrumental. Anything you want to set up for us to listen to it?
Just listen.
All right. Oh man, that is just so wild. What are the reactions to your music when you go and play in a venue?
Running, screaming, I don't know. I have cleared a few rooms. But the people who stay seem to like it. One thing I will say about that, headbang with your knees, not with your neck.
I was wondering about that. I love that you said in the interview with Joel, being a female guitarist in the 1990s, nobody wanted it. So you found the freedom to do whatever you wanted. And, you know, people don't really know what to do with freedom when they find it. How did you know what to do?
I just did what interested me. I just followed what I wanted.
Yeah, but I feel like that's if you said that to somebody, even if they were standing on the edge, like how do you get them to actually commit? You know, step over that line, because I think a lot of us, I mean, the channel's called Make Weird Music, so I'm already limiting the number of people who are going to be interested in any of the content, but like how do you get people to venture past their own taste into something, like I
I'm not
imagine
asking them to do that.
I know you're not. How did was this just a part of your spirit? Like this is just who you always were? Did you discover this about yourself? Was it rebellion?
I always looked for the weirdest thing. I always looked for the weirdest comic books, the weirdest movies, the weirdest whatever, and I looked for the weirdest music. I don't, it's just what interests me, and if it doesn't interest somebody else, that's cool.
I think it's pretty bold and brave and amazing. I commend you for it. It's truly amazing. There are times even for my own music, even if I know no one is going to hear it, I still battle with like, is this too stupid? Like, is this? Do you ever face
It's
that?
never too stupid.
Is that like a well? You have rules that you choose not to follow. Are there rules that you do follow?
Um, I don't know. I just if the new thing I'm working on, if I don't feel like it's the best thing I've ever written, then it's not good enough. That's my rule.
All right. And it's just all exploration for you. You just follow whatever impulses you have, and if you like it, you keep it, and if you don't, you throw it out.
Yeah.
Are you writing these pieces down? Like, I imagine all the Branca stuff was notated at the very least. Are you
The
doing this for
Branca stuff
yourself?
was in the Branca stuff was in staff notation.
Yeah.
My stuff's I don't usually write in staff notation. Sometimes I do, but I do write down the chord forms and I make recordings of the rhythms. Unless the rhythm is something that I couldn't make out on the recording. Sometimes then I'll write it down, but um, write them on this on some paper and I cut them out and paste them together.
That's great. Well, regbloor.com, Bloor, is where you can find all the info about Reg Bloor, obviously. Is Bandcamp the primary way, like means of getting your music?
Bandcamp or systemsneutralizers.com also.
And that's a record label that you started?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Reg, thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. I think you're fantastic, and I love that
Thank
you're a
you.
rule breaker.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. And let's take a look at. I think the first song in this Downtown Music Gallery performance was also the first song on your third album. It's a 1 minute track.
Oh, that's Alone on the Cyclone. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Is that the first one in this? Or is it on your Twitch stream? I've watched so much of your content. It's it all kind of blurs together.
It's probably the first one on Downtown Music Gallery.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at that. And once again, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I am Reg. I have CDs out on, I have a new one out on Systems Neutralizers, which they don't carry here, but you can buy it from me. And I have a mailing list and whatever.
Awesome.